Hi, welcome to the first ever edition of Beach Fishing Antics with me, Chaz. The reason I'm doing this is because I really enjoy watching other people do fishing videos, particularly beach fishing, because that's the kind of fishing that I enjoy doing on YouTube. And there's never enough, frankly. Well, certainly not halfway decent ones. And I'm kind of inspired by two of the channels I particularly enjoy watching, and that's the Totally Awesome Fishing Show with Graham and Mike Pullen. Fantastic, brilliant. If you're into any kind of fishing, just watch them. They're fantastic, and I've learned so much, and I'm so grateful for people like that. And another big shout out, Chris Collins up in Norfolk, from the Water's Edge TV. Again, another one. I kind of got back into beach fishing. I used to do it when I was a kid. I grew up down in Kent. I now live in Lincoln, and I don't get to go fishing very often. And I dropped out of it for decades. It's only really the last few years that I've got back into it, and it's kind of thanks to people like Graham and Mike and Chris and others. Cornish shore and kayak angling. That's another one I really enjoy. Is kind of bass fishing from the beach. So yeah, it's thanks to those kind of guys and the videos that they've put on that, you know, I'm kind of fishing and having half a chance at catching stuff, and I make my own rigs because of stuff that they've shown me and whatever. So I'm not trying to set myself up as somebody who really knows what they're doing. I don't. It's kind of trial and error, and so today, anyway, you find me down at Dungeness. It's just after Christmas, 27th. Been down to see the family, and one of my kind of rare opportunities to get down here to the cod fishing mecca. It's a really good time of year. There's been lots of southwesterly storms over the last week or so. We've got spring tides at the moment. We're actually on the ebb. I was down here a little bit later than originally intended. High tide was at around about noon. It's now 3:30. I've got one rod in the water. I just had a massive knock, but I missed it because I was fanning around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the other rod set up, and then I'll kind of, you know, before it gets dark, essentially I'm going to be here till about 2 o'clock in the morning, I expect. Essentially it's a night fishing trip. I kind of enjoy doing that. I've got a new toy, kind of GoPro camera, and it's got a little light thing. So fingers crossed I'll be able to get some decent footage with that. We might have some action shots. Hopefully we'll have some fish on camera. I'll show you a little bit of what I'm doing. Again, like I say, I'm not trying to teach you anything. If you're like me and a complete, you know, or like me a couple of years ago and a complete novice, you don't know what you're doing and you happen to have found me first, great. But I'd seriously recommend that you kind of watch Totally Awesome Fishing and From the Water's Edge. You know, really good hints and tips from those guys. Like I said, they've taught me a great deal. So bugger all this talking. I'll get on with some fishing. I'll get the other rod set up, and I'll catch up with you later. Okay guys, so there we go. First fish of the session. Tiny little pin whiting, kind of what you expect. Lovely kind of live bait size. I have got a live bait rig which I'll actually show you later. It's kind of my version of one. Something like this comes along and grabs it, then and there's any cod about, then hopefully we might be in luck later on. But anyway, let's get this little chap back and get that rod rebaited. The second rod's in the water now, so okay, we'll see what happens, and I'll catch up with you in a bit. Okay, one of the rigs that I'm going to be using today, and I thought I might as well bait it up for you now. It's just about light enough. I've got a bit of a light on, so hopefully you can see this okay. Is a live bait rig. One of the classic ways of trying to catch cod down at Dungeness. Now, I've never actually done it before. A while ago, I was kind of trying to research how on earth you make one of these things, and I couldn't find anything online that actually kind of told me how to tie it or whatever. I mean, essentially, the idea is pretty simple. You have a small hook below a larger one. But it's kind of how to fix that and kind of make sure it's in line, and you've got a flying top 4.0 or whatever. So I got a bit creative at home a while ago, and this is the first time I've actually got round to giving these a go. That's actually, if you can, what I'll do. Oh, let's step a little bit nearer to the camera. I don't know how well you can see that. Seems to be showing up okay. So essentially we've got a small hook. Now I think that's around about a size 2. It might even be, no, I'm pretty sure that's a size 2. And then that's something like a 4.0 above it. It might even be a 6.0. I don't know. It was so long ago that I made it. Essentially, dirty great hook for the cod. Now the idea is that you put a little bit of bait on the small hook there. Whiting comes along, grabs that cod, then comes along, grabs the whiting and takes the big hook on the top. Now, like I say, I tried for ages to try and find out how to tie one of these things, and I couldn't find anything terribly specific. Some say you can tie a kind of like a very short snood line onto the actual hook bend of the larger hook or whatever, which seemed to me a bit weird. So what I actually did was I don't know if you can see, it's got kind of black tubing on. Now that's actually been stripped off a kind of heavy duty 3-core flex. And it took a bit of kind of, warming it up to make it flexible, some nice hot water. And essentially what I've done is I've slid that over so that the actual top hook there slides on rather like the top hook of a pulley pennel rig. And then this kind of sleeve, which says that it's just the black plastic sleeve off of a heavy duty flex. The one where you haven't got strands, you've got like a solid copper wire going through it. And then that's basically warmed up and then slid onto the shank of the larger hook there. So essentially that is kind of movable, but it takes a bit of moving. It's not kind of, it's not something that's going to just randomly slide around. If I'm trying to get it back down, there we go. It's not something that's going to randomly slide about on the line. That's going to keep that, but it means that I can, trial and error. I can actually kind of move it a little bit up and down and see which works best. Now I'm assuming that for the purposes of this, fairly close. So, enough for the whiting to kind of like get that, but not actually get itself caught up on the bigger hook, because whiting have fairly large mouths. I mean, that whiting that the first fish I've caught today was only a little pin whiting, and that took a pulley pennel rig with around about size 3.0 hooks on it, and it swallowed the blooming hook. So whiting themselves have got big mouths, but essentially we're after something kind of fairly small, with that small hook there. It could be a small pouting or something like that. It doesn't have to be a whiting. So there we go. So that's the thing there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bait this one up and stick it on the rig. So let me just find a weight. Now what I'm doing, I can kind of dig something out of the weight box here. Now I'm using breakaway impact leads, which I just think of brilliant. I nearly swore there. Try not to swear, Chaz, on camera. I could always beep it out, kind of. So yeah, I do like to use breakaway impact leads. I think they're absolutely fantastic. They've never let me down. Other people swear by Geminis. As Graham would say, I'm not selling it. But you know, that's just preference. I think they last really well. They're quite robust. Come in various different sizes. You've got, I think that's 5 ounce, something like that, 6 ounce, and then you've got the 7 ounce, which is greenies. And that's, of course, what we're using here at Dungeness. I've just done something really silly there. I've taken a lead lift off, and I've left the bloody clip on the lead, and I actually need that. I've taken it off another lead because I'm trying to put it on one that I want to use. See, I'm a man. I can only do one thing at once. I can't be doing this, talking to camera and trying to. See, now I've stopped talking now because I'm concentrating. Anyway, so the idea is that because this is Dungeness and because it's pretty windy and because we've got very big tides at the moment, spring tides, and because it's Dungeness, it's a really good idea to use nice big heavy grip leads. Now some people go all the way up to kind of 8 or 9 ounces. I'm not sure if my Continental rods could actually cope with that, but they can cope with 7 ounces all right. And to be honest, there's only been one occasion in the past where 7 ounces has not held, and frankly the tide was racing across so strongly on that particular day that I don't even think 8 or 9 ounces would have held. Fortunately, it didn't stay like that for very long. The wind kind of dropped, and the tide slowed down a bit, and I was able to fish on that particular occasion. So, anyway, so here we go. So that's what I'm using, and then we've got a breakaway lead lift on the top, which just helps when you're kind of pulling back in. Just lifts the lead, stops it kind of bumping along the bottom. Just makes it for a kind of smoother retrieve, really. Particularly if you've got bugger all on. I mean, in theory, with a pulley rig, if you've got a nice big fish on, then you'll have the fish at the end, and that'll drag the weight off the ground anyway. But you know, that's all well in theory. But how often do we kind of pull a nice big fat fish in? The vast majority of the time, what we're doing is pulling it back empty, and we're rebaiting, and we're casting out again. And it's just kind of going bump, bump, bump. And I just think the lead lift is a brilliant idea. Really works really well. I like it. So now it's starting to get really dark, and I can't see what the bloody hell I'm doing because I haven't got my head torch on yet. But anyway, what we'll do is we'll grab a bit of bait. We've got this lovely Dungeness black lugworm. You can't beat Dungeness black. Do you know, I actually asked because I thought it might be interesting to kind of try some blow lug or some yellowtails or something, just to, for some extra scent in the water. The thing is, there's no demand for them, so you can't actually get hold of them. But you can't beat wonderful worms like this. I get my bait from Mixed Tackle in Hythe. The lovely Pauline. Shout out to her. Absolutely amazing. Always order it in advance, and she's lovely. She always looks after me, bless her. Even though I'm a very infrequent customer, because I have to come quite a long way. And there you go. Now I've immediately found a good reason for kind of pulling that hook a little bit further up and adjusting it, because that's actually a reasonable size worm, and I'm going to run out of space. But what I'll do is I'll just chop the bottom of that off. There we go. Make sure the hook point's exposed. So there we go. We've got that nice big kind of like hook further up, and that kind of worm bait. Small hook there. Hopefully whiting comes along, grabs hold of that. Codling comes along, grabs hold of the other bit. Okay, so got a couple of rods out now, and one of the issues obviously with the live bait thing is the setup I actually use, a couple of continental rods and fixed spool reels and braid, because I really like the kind of bite detection. I like the fact that it's so thin, and I use tapered leaders with that, so you get a really small leader knot, which kind of helps with weed and stuff like that. But the issue is, having never fished a live bait rig before, is of course then you kind of like, you get a bite and presumably, hopefully, that's a little whiting or a little pouting or something that's just kind of, taken that hook, and you've got to ignore that and just wait for the rod to slam over, I assume. I don't know. It's a learning curve, so we shall see how we get on. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is the couple of rigs that I had on before that, so I've got another pulley pennel rig out on the second rod, and that's got a couple of nice black lug on it. I think I was going to mention, I can't remember if I actually did or not, and this is the problem with kind of, making videos. You need to be a bit more organised than I probably am. But I think I was talking about this beautiful lugworm that we get down in Kent, and taking a trip up to Norfolk with it, and fishing off the beach in Waxham. So we're really fortunate that we have somewhere that we can stay there, right by the beach, and you don't get lugworm up there. But back in September, I had 4 lovely bass over 3 evening sessions. Lots of kind of, tiddly little schoolers, but 4 sizable bass on black lugworm, all caught at night. I think the main problem with fishing there during the day is that there's a seal colony literally right kind of where we are, and I think they just scare all the fish away. So the only stuff that I caught during the day were tiny weeny little, the cutest little bass. It was literally no bigger than that, and kind of postage size dab, which are very cute, and but you wonder how on earth they get a kind of size 2 hook in their gobs. They were so small. But yeah, that's kind of all. And then what we were catching, or what I was catching at night, that's when the bass seemed to be around, which was fantastic, brilliant sport. Of course, have a bit of a problem with that with the summer coming up because of the new rules, which frankly I think are blooming outrageous. I don't have a problem in some ways with the idea of kind of catch and release for bass. We need to preserve bass stocks and whatever, but the idea that anglers from the beach are severely damaging bass stocks, and yet gill netters, who are supposed to be subject to the same blooming ban, but as I understand it are now only going to be banned for 2 months, February and March, and for the rest of the year have their quota upped from 1 to 1.3 tonnes a month. Frankly, I think that's a joke. It's absolutely ridiculous. What kind of impact is that going to have on our sport? There are people who make a living out of this, sell bait, people who are kind of fishing guides and stuff like that, people who take anglers out on boats, often specifically targeting bass, certainly in the summer. I think it's not terribly well thought through, and it's frankly a crying shame. Anyway, this is the rig so that's what we're actually doing at the moment. I don't know how well you can see that with the kind of lighting situation that I've got going here. But so pulley panel rig, probably around about 4/0 hooks, I think, and a couple of black lugworm. Surefire way of finding your rigs is get yourself hooked on it. Now, do you know, I actually did that. I think I hadn't been making my rigs for all that long, and I did the classic thing, tightening a knot up on a dirty grate hook, and straight through the finger, and then plaintive cries from the kitchen to my wife, "Kelly, I think I might need to go to hospital." And yeah, they had to. The trouble was, the point was pointing right at the bone, so they couldn't kind of jam it through, just kind of cut the eye off and poke it the whole way through the finger. They actually had to cut the blooming thing out because the barb was well and truly buried. So a lesson learnt. But knowing me, doubtless I'll do it again at some point. Okay guys, if the target species were dogfish, then this would be amazing. Unfortunately, the target species is not dogfish, it's cod, and even some whiting would be nice, but all I've had is one pin whiting, and that's extraordinary because normally you're plagued with them. Frankly, I feel like I'm being plagued with dogfish at the moment. It's now about 7:30. Tide's on the turn, it's coming back in. Literally as soon as the bait hits the water, I'm getting bites, but the trouble is it's dogfish. So I think what I'm going to do, I've got 3 traces now sitting on the floor waiting to be baited up. I think I might give the live bait rig a miss at the moment because there doesn't seem to be any whiting about, so there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of point. I've put that out twice and both times I've caught a dogfish. So that kind of rather defeats the object. So I think I'll stick with the pulley panels. I'm almost tempted. I was just chatting to a guy who's just turned up. He's going to be fishing alongside. But he's kind of waiting for the high tide. So like me, he's here for the long haul. But I said to him, I'm almost tempted to put a 3-hook flapper out and just kind of see if I can pick anything up other than bloody dogfish at the moment. But we shall see. So I think what I'll do is I'll bait another couple of rigs up. I'll leave the one rod that's kind of out of the water temporarily. I shall have a cup of tea, maybe a sandwich, and a ciggy, and kind of give it a rest for a while, and then see if things improve a little bit later. Okay, so I'll catch up with you in a bit. Alright, there we go guys, first double shot. Oh. One whiting. That's actually not a bad size, that one. The size of the gob. And on the other end of the pennel rig, he's actually come straight off the hook. That's dogfish number 7. There we go, 7 bloody dogfish. But we have got a whiting. Okay, so the time is now about 10 to 10. Had that double shot, the whiting and the dogfish. That was dogfish number 7, I think. I need to lose count. So I've decided to kind of change or try something a little bit different now. So I've got a 3-hook flapper rig out with a size 2.0 Sakuma Manta hook, I think. It's quite a wide gape, strong hook, and nice big worm up the snood, and then we'll kind of see what happens basically. If the whiting come along, that's great. If a codling comes along and grabs onto it, then it's a big enough hook to do the job. So a bit of speculation, but I'm starting to get a few kind of little knocks and nibbles and stuff like that, which seems to imply that the whiting are about a bit more now. Hopefully if the whiting coming in, the cod might make an appearance. So we've still got a few hours to go. It's a couple of hours yet until high tide, about 2.5 hours until high tide. So yeah, we'll just kind of try something a little bit different and see if that gets us anywhere. But it's all fun and speculation and whatever. I mean, you can only kind of, it's fishing, not catching, isn't it? If it's there in front of you, trying to adapt your tactics to what's out there, and changing something might make a difference. So we'll give it a go, and I'll catch up with you a bit. Okay, and there we go. That's the result of sticking that flapper rig on. We have a triple shot, 1, 2, 3 of whiting. So there we go. They are most definitely starting to appear. So it may be a good idea to stick the live rig out. Anyway, let's get them unhooked. Okay, so there we go, guys. Triple shot of whiting. And they're all a good size. So excellent flapper rig.
He's doing the job.
Okay guys, thought I'd better check in. It's now midnight. It's just about high tide. The water's pretty much on my doorstep. Go back into focus. Yeah, which is nice. So I'm not having to kind of wander all the way down the beach anymore. So the fishing gradually gets easier and easier because you're kind of fishing right from your tent. And it's been a whiting fest. Can't remember if I've mentioned the other dogfish. We're on to 8 dogfish, but we've stopped with the dogfish now, which is rather splendid. And we're now on to the whiting, and quite a good few sizable whiting, which is always a bonus because I really like whiting. So does my wife, so does my daughter, the one that's still at home. So we've got something to kind of take away from the trip, which is always a bonus. At the moment, I've got a pulley pennel rig out. As it's kind of high tide, I thought I'll kind of go for it. I've got some squid, and it needs using up, and so I've rigged up a whole squid on a pulley pennel. And kind of thrown that out. It's kind of speculative. Let's have a quick look at the rods. It's getting the odd little bang, which probably means whiting and kind of playing around with it. But no sign of the elusive cod, so I thought, what the hell, we might as well give it a go. And then the other rod has got the 3-hook flapper because, frankly, as soon as the bait hits the water, the whiting are just all over it. So it's the rod's kind of sitting there, bang, 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 bang. But obviously there's 3 hooks on there, so I'm just ignoring it. Unless the bloody thing kind of like hits the deck, or I get a massive slack line, then I'm just leaving it alone. And if I leave it there, then usually there's 3 fish coming in. And as I say, some of them are quite sizable. So there we go. So, like I say, it's kind of midnight, pretty much high tide. I think the high tide's actually in about 10 or 15 minutes. So the plan is to kind of fish a couple of hours down. We'll see how we go. It's starting to get a little bit chillier now. Wind's picking up, but the sea's actually very calm, which, considering that we've had loads of southwesterlies, it's been really stormy and really rough, and it's still fairly blowy. We've got a southerly at the moment. That's really quite surprising, but it makes the fishing easier, so I'm not complaining. Okay guys, I shall get back to it, and hopefully I'll check in with you later.
Double shot of whiting, one small one. That one's quite a nice size.
All in all, not too bad a session. No cod. Curse of the camera, probably. Although, to be honest, I've never really been successful with cod. I've only had kind of those codling I've had here have only been small over the years. So, but in the end, lots of whiting. Took them a while to turn up, but I've actually got a bag of 13 sizable whiting, which is great. So maybe at some point I'll kind of do a little video about how I actually kind of cook those up. Really tasty. And finished up double figures, 10 dogfish. which has got to be a record, I think, for me for one session. But not the kind of record you want to set particularly. But, you know, what the hell. I'd like to say it was a bit of sport, but they tend to just curl up and feel like a plastic bag and whatever. They don't exactly fight on the way in, and none of them were terribly big either. So, you know, but it was nice, fresh air. Now I'm going to get back to the parents and probably have a fresh cup of tea and then get a few hours kip. Okay, so I'll catch up again soon. Take care.